Today, we are going to tackle a word that can sound, a little intimidating: research. You're probably picturing scientists in lab coats, right? But what if I told you it all starts with a simple question that you just can't get out of your head? Let's break it all down.
Seriously, have you ever wondered about something so much that a quick Google search just doesn't cut it? Maybe you want to know if that new fitness trend actually works, or why one coffee shop in your town is always packed and the others aren't. That feeling, that deep curiosity, well, that's it. That's the starting line for all research. Because the second you decide to move past a simple search and start looking for a real, evidence-backed answer, yep, you're stepping right into the world of research. It's how we intentionally go looking for knowledge.
Okay, so let's build on that. We know it's a process, but what does that really mean? Let's get right to the core of it and lock in a definition so we're all on the same page.
So the official definition gives us two words that seem like total opposites: creative and systematic. And that's the magic of it, right? It's not just a robotic step-by-step process. You've got to be creative to ask new and interesting questions, but you absolutely need a systematic, organized plan to find an answer you can trust. It's how we, all of us, add to our big pool of shared knowledge.
Or you can just boil it all down to this really simple and powerful formula. It starts with a question, then you go out and gather evidence, data, in a really structured way. And finally, you look at all that evidence to find the answer. That whole journey from start to finish, that's the heart of research.
But that middle part, the collecting evidence bit, it can't be random. Nope. For an answer to be reliable, it has to follow a blueprint. So let's take a look at the systematic process that gives research all of its power and credibility.
And a lot of the time, that blueprint is the scientific method. You start by just noticing something and forming a question about it. From there, you make a hypothesis, which is really just a fancy word for a focused, testable guess. Then comes the real work. You gather and analyze data to see if your guess was on the money. And finally, you draw a conclusion based only on that evidence. It's a logical road from, I wonder, to a real, verifiable answer.
So, the most important thing to get here is that research isn't about just getting lucky and stumbling on answers. It's a deliberate, organized journey. And that structure is what separates a casual opinion from a real discovery. It's what allows other people to trust and build on the answers we find.
Okay, so how do you actually get that evidence? Well, it turns out researchers have a whole toolbox full of different methods they can use. The trick is always choosing the right tool for the right kind of question.
One of the biggest tools in the box is qualitative research. Think of this one as the tool for understanding the why and the how. It's all about exploring human experiences, maybe through deep interviews or just by observing people. You're not counting stuff, you're gathering stories and themes and context to really get the rich details of why people do what they do.
And on the other side of the toolbox, you've got quantitative research. So if qualitative is the why, quantitative is the how many or how much. This method is all about numbers and measurement. It uses things like big surveys and controlled experiments to get numerical data, which you can then analyze with stats to find patterns and test a theory.
Putting them side by side like this makes it super clear, right? Qualitative research often starts with what you see and builds up to a bigger theory. That's called an inductive approach. Quantitative, on the other hand, usually starts with a theory that's already out there and uses data to test if it holds up. That's deductive. They're just two different but equally powerful ways to make sense of the world around us.
All right, so we know what research is, and we know how it's done, but why bother? What is the actual point of all this systematic work?
Well, the purpose is huge and honestly vital. On the highest level, it's about pushing the boundaries of what humans know. But on a more practical level, it's how we discover how things work, how we solve really practical, real-world problems, and how we get solid evidence to make better decisions, whether we're talking about medicine or technology or business.
Just think about a company like Amazon. They are constantly researching customer behavior. They don't just guess what you might want to buy. They systematically collect and analyze data on every single click, every purchase, every search. That research is what informs their business strategy. It helps them solve the very practical problem of what to stock and who to recommend it to.
Now, when you have this kind of power to discover and influence, it comes with a huge responsibility. And that is where research ethics comes in. You can think of it like the essential rules of the road for any study. It's the framework that makes sure the search for knowledge is done with total integrity, honesty, and a deep respect for anyone who participates.
And finally, let's get real for a second. Because research isn't just some sterile process of steps and methods. It's an intensely human thing to do.
and it comes with all the passions and pressures you'd expect.
You see, researchers live in a world with some pretty intense pressures. A huge one is what's called the publish or perish culture, especially in academia. As this quote points out, that constant compulsive need to get papers published can sometimes, well, overshadow the real goal, to actually make a meaningful contribution to what we know.
And that's really the key thing to remember here. The process, the papers, all of it, they're just the means to an end. The ultimate goal, the true north for any researcher, is to genuinely and honestly push the boundaries of human knowledge.
So let's pull it all together. What have we learned? Well, that research isn't some big, scary mystery. It's just a systematic way to answer our biggest questions. It's got a whole toolbox of methods, from telling stories to crunching numbers. And its purpose is always to grow our knowledge and solve real problems. But most importantly, it's a deeply human thing, fueled by our own curiosity.
So the blueprint is there, and the tools are available. The only thing that's missing is your question. So what's it going to be? What will you discover?